John F. Kennedy International Airport pulsed with its usual frenetic energy that October morning. Maxwell Rochester crossed Terminal 4 with the precision of a Swiss watch, his footsteps echoing against the polished floor as he consulted his Patek Philippe, a ritual as ingrained as his success routine. At 42, Max embodied the archetype of the successful executive: impeccable Italian suit, leather Mont Blanc briefcase, and an expression that discouraged unnecessary approaches. "Mr. Rochester, the board meeting has been brought forward to 9 o'clock, his assistant informed him via Bluetooth. Max adjusted the knot of his tie as he replied with his characteristic objectivity. "I'll be there in 40 minutes. Prepare the Asian merger reports." The hubbub of the airport dissolved around him like white noise, a skill honed over years of singular dedication to business. His mind was already in the Rochester Enterprises boardroom, calculating strategies and anticipating objections, when a small, clear voice cut through his bubble of isolation. "Dad?" The word hit Max like an invisible punch, bringing him to an abrupt halt. A suitcase overturned behind him and an angry apology barely registered in his consciousness. His eyes slowly lowered, meeting a pair of blue eyes that looked like a distorted mirror of his own past. "Why did you abandon us?" The question hung in the air like smoke, suffocating in its simplicity. The girl, no more than 8 years old, wore a navy blue dress with small embroidered flowers and held a worn purple backpack. Her light brown hair was tied up in a messy braid, and there was something about her determined chin that triggered a dormant memory in Max. "You must be mistaking me for someone else," he replied, his controlled voice betraying only a slight tremor. He tried to take a step to the side, but his feet seemed stuck to the ground. "No, I'm not," the girl insisted, pulling a crumpled photograph out of her dress pocket. "Mom keeps this picture in her special drawer." Max felt his blood run cold as he recognized the image. Himself, 10 years younger, hugging Charlotte in front of Central Park. His mind raced, desperately searching for a rational explanation, a way out. Was Charlotte pregnant when he left? How had he never known? Why was this child here, now, defying all the order he had so carefully constructed? "Where's your mother?" he asked, his eyes scanning the busy terminal. "At the hospital," the girl replied, her voice losing some of its initial confidence. "Aunt Regina said she needs special treatment." The name Regina, Charlotte's younger sister, triggered another wave of unwanted memories. Max checked his watch again, an automatic gesture of defense against the emotional chaos that threatened his perfectly organized routine. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to buy time while his mind processed the implications of this situation. "Lily," she replied, adjusting her backpack on her small shoulders. "Lily Charlotte Rochester. I have a letter for you from Mom." The surname hit Max like a second blow. Lily began rummaging through her bag, her movements becoming more frantic as the seconds ticked by. "It's in here somewhere." "Ah." She pulled out a white envelope, crumpled at the edges. Max accepted the letter with fingers he could barely control. His phone vibrated, probably his assistant asking about his tardiness, but for the first time in years, he ignored the call. "How did you find me?" he asked, his voice softer now. "Aunt Regina works for the travel company. She saw your name on the list of passengers arriving today," Lily explained, rocking slightly on her heels. I ran away from home this morning. No one knows I'm here." The confession roused Max from his stupor. A child alone at the airport. His daughter, the word echoed strangely in his mind, had run away to find him. The reality of the situation began to set in, bringing with it an urgency he couldn't ignore. "We need to call your aunt," he said, reaching for his phone. "No." Lily grabbed his arm, her eyes suddenly filled with tears. "Please read the letter first. Mom said it was important. She's not well, Daddy." The word Daddy hit him again, but this time with less impact and more weight. Max looked at the envelope in his hands, at Charlotte's familiar handwriting on the front, and then at the little girl waiting with barely contained anticipation. An announcement sounded over the airport PA system, reminding him of the world beyond this surreal moment. His meeting, the reports, the mergers and acquisitions, it all seemed distant now, like a dream from which he was slowly awakening. "All right," he said at last, guiding Lily to a nearby set of seats. "Let's read this letter together." As he sat down, Max noticed how his hands were shaking as he opened the envelope. For the first time in a decade, he was completely out of control, and the most disturbing thing was that a part of him, a long silenced part, felt that maybe this wasn't so bad. Lily settled down beside him, her small hand finding its way to the sleeve of his expensive suit. The touch, though light, weighed like all the choices he had made and avoided over the last 10 years. "Daddy?" Lily whispered, her voice laden with hope and fear. Max took a deep breath and began to unfold the letter, knowing instinctively that the words on that paper would change his life forever. The paper trembled in Max's hands as his eyes traveled over the first few lines of Charlotte's letter. Beside him, Lily remained silent, her small fingers still clutching the sleeve of her suit. "Maxwell, if you're reading this, it means that our daughter has managed to find you." Knowing Lily, she probably planned everything down to the smallest detail. She inherited your determination, you know. Max closed his eyes for a moment, memories flooding his mind like a dam breaking. 10 years ago, on a September night, 2014, Upper East Side. The apartment was silent when Maxwell arrived home. Charlotte was sitting on the beige sofa they had chosen together, her hands resting serenely on her lap, a calm that contradicted the storm in her eyes. "I found the divorce papers in your briefcase," she said, her voice controlled. "Interesting how you found time to go to the lawyer, but not to have dinner at home for the last 3 weeks. Charlotte, can we discuss this tomorrow? I have a video conference with Hong Kong in an hour. There's always a meeting, a conference, a deal that can't be postponed." Charlotte stood up, her green eyes shining with restrained tears. "When did we get lost, Max?" Back in the present, Max continued reading. "I'm not writing to demand explanations or reopen old wounds. Time teaches us different lessons than we thought we needed to learn. I'm ill, Max. The diagnosis is not favorable, and Lily, our Lily needs a father." The weight of those words hit him like a physical blow. Next to him, Lily moved restlessly, as if she felt the tension emanating from him. "There's a photo inside the envelope," she whispered, leaning closer. Max pulled out the photograph hidden behind the letter. It was a picture of Charlotte and Lily in a park, both smiling at the camera. The resemblance between mother and daughter was striking, but the eyes, Lily's eyes, were unmistakably her own. 2014, flashback continuation. "I built all this for us." Max gestured towards the luxurious apartment. "The sacrifices were necessary." "No," Charlotte shook her head. "You built it for yourself. We were just decoration. A trophy wife for your corporate parties. A respectable address to impress your partners." "That's not fair," he protested, loosening the tie that seemed to choke him. "Fair?" Charlotte laughed, a bitter sound. "It would have been fair if you had told me you were planning to leave. Fair would have been for you to have fought for us before giving up." The letter continued. "Regina has been my support during treatment, but she can't be mother and father to Lily. Our daughter needs you now. Not your money or your name, but your presence. She's extraordinary, Maxwell. Intelligent, determined, and, despite everything, with a heart full of hope." Max swallowed, feeling the knot in his throat tighten. Next to him, Lily seemed to be holding her breath. "There's more," she whispered, pointing to the page. "I know you've built a new life in these 10 years. You probably have new commitments, new responsibilities. I'm not asking you to abandon everything, but to find space in your world to get to know your daughter. She deserves that. You deserve that." 2014, last scene of the flashback. "Sign the papers," Max said, his voice as cold as the air conditioning humming in the background. "It'll be better this way." Charlotte picked up the pen, her hands shaking slightly. "You know what's ironic? After all this time trying to be perfect in business, you completely failed at what really mattered." She signed the documents with one swift movement, letting the pen fall over them. "I hope it's worth it, Max. I hope all this fortune keeps you warm on cold nights." The letter ended with words that made her heart squeeze. "The address of the hospital is on the back of this letter. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Maxwell. I'm offering you a chance at redemption. For Lily. For yourself. Charlotte." Max folded the letter slowly, his world spinning on a different axis now. He looked at Lily, who was watching him with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "You're going to send me back, aren't you?" she asked, her voice small. At that moment, Maxwell Rochester, the man who had built an empire based on cold, calculated decisions, felt something break inside him. It wasn't a destructive break, but as if an invisible wall collapsed, allowing long-contained emotions to finally flow out. "No," he replied, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. "I'm not sending you back. We're going to see your mother together." Lily smiled, a smile that lit up her eyes. His eyes, in a way that made his heart ache. Her phone vibrated again, but this time Max switched it off completely. Some meetings could wait. Not this one. Standing up, he offered his hand to Lily, who accepted it without hesitation. As they walked towards the airport exit, Max realized that, for the first time in 10 years, he was walking towards something instead of running away. The black Mercedes glided silently through the streets of Manhattan, creating a temporary cocoon for its two very different occupants. Max watched Lily through the rearview mirror as she pressed her face against the glass, her eyes taking in every detail of the city. "I've never ridden in such a beautiful car," she commented, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on the premium leather of the back seat. "We always ride the subway, or in Aunt Regina's old car." The simplicity of the statement hit Max like a silent accusation. While he accumulated luxury cars and property, his daughter grew up using public transport. His jaw tensed as other revelations from Charlotte's letter echoed in his mind. What full contents of the letter that Max was now rereading in the passenger seat? Maxwell. There are so many ways to start this letter, so many unspoken words over the years. But time, that resource you've always valued so much, has now become too precious to waste on recriminations. "When you left, I was 6 weeks pregnant. I found out the day after you left. Ironically, just as your lawyer was filing the divorce papers. I thought about telling you. I even dialed your number dozens of times, but something stopped me. Perhaps pride, perhaps fear that you would see our daughter as just another project to be managed. Lily was born one spring morning. She weighed 3.2 kilos and had your eyes from the first moment. The doctors said it was impossible, that babies' eyes always change. But hers didn't. They were her eyes staring at me through her, like a constant reminder of what we had lost. For years I built a life for the two of us. It wasn't easy, but every smile she had, every small achievement, made it all worthwhile. Lily grew up asking about you. Unlike me, she never held a grudge. Her questions were always full of curiosity and hope. Now, at 39, I'm facing a diagnosis that no mother should ever receive. Pancreatic cancer, advanced stage. The doctors are talking about months, maybe a year of aggressive treatment. I'm not writing to ask for your financial help. Regina and I have managed just fine all these years. I'm writing because our daughter deserves to meet her father before it's too late. She's extraordinary, Maxwell. She has intelligence and determination, but also a kindness that sometimes frightens me. At 8, she's already showing a maturity that makes me wonder if she hasn't grown up too fast, trying to be strong for me. I know you've probably built another life. Perhaps you have another family, other children. I'm not asking you to abandon anything just to make room to get to know Lily. She collects newspaper clippings about you. She treasures every mention of Rochester Enterprises. Your business success fills her with pride, even without knowing you. Treatment begins next week at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Lily shouldn't be alone during this process. She needs a father, not a memory or newspaper clippings. If anything in you still remembers the man I knew, the one who dreamed of making a difference in the world, who talked about leaving a meaningful legacy, please don't ignore this request. Not for me, but for her. And Max, forgive yourself. Not for me, but for yourself. The past can't be changed, but the future is still open. Charlotte, Daddy. Lily's voice brought him back to the present. Are you crying? Max quickly wiped away a wayward tear that had escaped. No, just something in my eye. Mom says crying is nothing to be ashamed of, Lily commented, leaning back between the stools. She says that sometimes tears are like rain. They cleanse you from the inside. Your mother was always wise, Max replied, his voice hoarse. Do you still love her? The question, as direct as only a child could ask, caught Max off guard. Before he could answer, his phone, which he had turned back on moments before, started ringing insistently. Mr. Rochester. His assistant's voice sounded urgent through the car stereo. The council is waiting. Mr. Phillips is threatening to vote against the merger if you don't show up in 15 minutes. Max looked at Lily through the rearview mirror. Her eyes, his own eyes, staring at him expectantly. The decision he made at that moment would change the course of several lives. Diana, cancel the meeting, he ordered. In fact, clear my schedule for the rest of the week. But sir, the merger. Some things are more important than mergers, he interrupted, hanging up the phone. Lily smiled, a smile that lit up the entire interior of the car. Are we going to see Mom? Yes, Max replied, feeling a familiar weight leave his shoulders. We're going to see your mom. As the car drove towards the hospital, Max realized that he was holding Charlotte's letter as if it were a map, not just to the hospital, but to a way back to the humanity he had lost so long ago. The day was just beginning, and for the first time in a decade, Maxwell Rochester had no idea what would happen next. Strangely, this no longer frightened him. Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center stood imposingly against the Manhattan sky, its mirrored windows reflecting the morning light. Max parked the Mercedes in the visitors' area, his hands gripping the steering wheel hard enough to turn his knuckles white. Aunt Regina works on the 4th floor, Lily informed him, already unbuckling her seatbelt. She'll be angry when she finds out I've run away, but she'll understand when she sees you. Max doubted that last part. His memories of Regina were of a fierce and protective woman, especially when it came to Charlotte. A confrontation was inevitable. As they crossed the hospital lobby, Max felt the curious stares of the staff. His face was too well known. He often appeared in business magazines and at social events. Lily, oblivious to the attention they were attracting, held his hand as naturally as if she did it every day. Maxwell Rochester. The voice cut through the air like a razor. Regina was standing near the elevators, her green eyes so similar to Charlotte's, sparking with anger. 10 years had left a few silver strands in her dark hair, but her posture remained as defiant as ever. Regina, he replied, keeping his voice controlled. Lily Charlotte Bennett, do you have any idea what a fright you've given us? Regina stepped forward, ignoring Max completely. Your mother's panicking. I'm sorry, Auntie, Lily mumbled, but she didn't let go of Max's hand. I needed to find him. And you? Regina finally turned to Max, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. How dare you show up here after all these years? Lily found me, he explained, feeling the weight of her accusing gaze. Charlotte wrote a letter. Oh, so now you care. Now that she's... Regina interrupted herself, looking at Lily. Go to your mother's room, dear. Room 412. I need to talk to your father. Lily hesitated, looking between the two adults. Do you promise not to send him away? The question hit Regina like a punch. Her expression softened for a moment. I promise. Love. Go. After Lily entered the elevator, Regina pulled Max to a more private corner of the lobby. Do you have any idea what Charlotte has been through? What your daughter went through? Her voice was low but laden with 10 years of resentment. While you were building your empire, Charlotte was working 2 jobs to give Lily a decent life. While you appeared on the covers of magazines, your daughter cut out the photos trying to understand why her father never came to her. Flashback. 5 years ago, Aunt Regina, look, Lily, then 3, pointed excitedly at a magazine on the newsstand. It's Daddy! Regina watched helplessly as her niece admired Max's picture in an article about the 40 most influential executives in New York. Charlotte had come home that night to find her daughter asleep cuddled up with the magazine. I didn't know about Lily, Max defended himself, his voice losing its usual confidence. If Charlotte had told me, what? Would you have come back? Abandoned your precious business? Regina laughed humorlessly. You didn't even look back, Maxwell. Charlotte tried to call you dozens of times in the first few weeks. Your assistants always said the same thing. Mr. Rochester is in an important meeting. The silence that followed was deafening. Max felt the weight of every decision, every lost moment, every missed call. Charlotte is 3 months old, Regina continued, her voice breaking. The cancer spread faster than the doctors expected. She refused to have any more chemotherapy so that she could spend the time she has left lucid with Lily. Max felt his legs go weak, leaning on the wall nearby. 3 months? If that, Regina wiped away an unruly tear. So, if you plan to disappear again, do it now. Because if you give that little girl hope and then leave, I swear to God, Maxwell, not all your money will protect you. I'm not leaving, he replied, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice. Not this time. Regina studied him for a long moment, as if trying to see through the layers of success and power he had built up over the years. Charlotte's in room 412, she finally said. She's having a good day today. The pain is under control. But Maxwell, she gripped his arm with surprising strength. If you hurt her again, if you hurt Lily, I understand, he interrupted softly. The elevator rose slowly, each floor marking a beat of Max's racing heart. When the doors opened on the 4th floor, he hesitated. Through the corridor, he could hear Lily's excited voice and, softer, almost an echo from the past. Charlotte's laughter. Regina watched him, her eyes now softer. "She always said you'd come back one day," she murmured. Even when everyone said she was a fool to believe it. Max swallowed, adjusted his tie out of habit, and took the first step towards room 412. It was time to face not just Charlotte, but the man he had become, and the man he needed to be now. The mask of the powerful Maxwell Rochester was beginning to crack, and behind it, something long forgotten was emerging. Simply, Max, the man who once promised to love Charlotte forever. Room 412 seemed to contain all the air in the world when Max finally reached the ajar door. Lily's voice floated out, excitedly recounting her adventure at the airport, while a softer, painfully familiar voice made little interjections of surprise and concern, and then he hung up the phone. "Mom, he canceled all his important meetings just to come and see you." Max took a deep breath and gently pushed the door open. Time seemed to freeze when his eyes met Charlotte's for the first time in a decade. She was leaning back on white hospital pillows, thinner than he remembered, but her green eyes retained that characteristic sparkle that had always disarmed him. Her hair, once long and brown, was short and thinning, visible marks of the treatment. Even so, she maintained a dignity that made his heart squeeze. "Maxwell," she said softly, a small smile playing on her pale lips. "You haven't changed a bit." It was a lie, of course. He had changed completely. His hair was graying at the temples. Expression lines marked his face, especially around the eyes, from frowning so much in endless meetings. "Charlotte," he managed to say, his voice huskier than he had intended. Dad brought the letter," Lily interrupted, jumping up from the edge of the bed where she was sitting, "and he cried in the car, even though he said it was just something in his eye." Charlotte laughed softly, the sound bringing back a wave of memories that threatened to break down the walls Max had built up over the years. Flashback. 11 years ago. "Max, are you crying?" Charlotte asked, holding up the negative pregnancy test. "No, it's just, allergies," he lied, turning his face away to hide his disappointment. It was the third unsuccessful attempt. "We'll manage," she promised, hugging him from behind. "Some things just take time." "Time is money," he replied automatically, already checking emails on his phone. "Maybe we should focus on other things for now." "Have a seat, Maxwell." Charlotte indicated a chair next to the bed. "Lily, dear, could you ask Aunt Regina for that special tea for Mom?" Lily nodded enthusiastically and left the room, leaving a heavy silence between her parents. "You've gotten thinner," Charlotte observed. "You still don't eat your lunch properly, do you?" The familiarity of her concern hit him like a punch in the stomach. "Even now, even after everything." "Charlotte, I'm so sorry." The words escaped before he could contain them. "If I'd known about Lily, what would you have done?" she asked, not angrily, but with genuine curiosity. "Would you have abandoned your dreams? Would you have stayed out of obligation?" "I had a right to know." "Yes, you did," she agreed, adjusting herself on the pillows with a grimace of pain that she tried to disguise. "Just as I had the right to be more than a trophy on your shelf of achievements." The silence that followed was interrupted by the constant beeping of the heart monitors. "She's extraordinary," Max finally said, looking at the door Lily had come out of. "So brave and determined." "Like you," Charlotte added. "She has your drive, Maxwell. But she also has something you've lost along the way. The ability to see beyond numbers and status." Max felt the weight of her words. His phone vibrated in his pocket, probably another urgent message about the abandoned merger. But for the first time in years, he didn't feel the need to check it. "How long?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. "The doctors say 3 months," she replied with surreal calm. "But you know how I always like to prove others wrong." An involuntary sob escaped Max, surprising them both. Charlotte reached out, lightly touching his arm. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel guilty," she said softly. "I'm telling you because our daughter will need you, for real, not just your name or your money." "I don't know how to be a father," he admitted, as vulnerable as he hadn't allowed himself to be for years. "Nobody knows at first," she smiled. "But Lily makes it easy to love her. Just don't disappear again, Maxwell. She doesn't deserve to go through this twice." Just then, Lily returned with Regina, who was carrying a steaming cup. The scent of chamomile filled the room. "Look, Mom!" Lily exclaimed, carefully jumping back into bed. "Aunt Regina put in extra honey, just the way you like it." Max observed the interaction between mother and daughter, noticing the small gestures of affection, the way Lily adjusted Charlotte's pillow without being asked, how she knew exactly where her mother kept the tissues. His daughter had grown up learning to care for others, while he had spent the last decade learning only to look after numbers on a spreadsheet. "Mr. Rochester?" A nurse appeared at the door. "There's some paperwork we need you to fill out since you're listed as a relative." Max stood up hesitantly. "You'll be back, won't you?" Lily asked, her eyes, his own eyes, full of hope and fear. "I will," he promised, and for the first time in years, he felt the weight and value of a true promise. "I'll just sort out this paperwork and get back to you." As he followed the nurse down the corridor, Max noticed that he was walking lighter, as if some of the armor he had built up over the years was starting to come off. His corporate empire could wait. Now he had a new construction project ahead of him, and this time, the materials would not be contracts and shares, but love, patience, and above all, time. The rest of that first day at the hospital passed like a fever dream for Max. Between endless forms and ignored calls from his company, he watched the dynamic between Charlotte, Lily, and Regina with a growing sense of being an intruder in a perfectly functioning world without him. It was after 7 in the evening when Regina finally addressed the practical question hanging in the air. "Lily needs to go home," she said, looking meaningfully at Max. "She has school tomorrow." Charlotte, who had dozed off intermittently during the afternoon, opened her eyes. "Maxwell, could you—" "I'll take her," he hastened to say, surprising everyone, including himself. "But I want to stay with Mommy," Lily protested, clinging to Charlotte's hand. "Darling," Charlotte said softly, "you need to rest. And tomorrow is presentation day for your science project, remember?" Max watched the interaction, noticing how his daughter immediately straightened up at the mention of the project. "Science project? About renewable energy," Lily explained, her face lighting up. "I built a mini solar power plant." Flashback. 25 years ago, Maxwell Rochester announced the principal. First place in the state science fair. Young Max took to the stage, holding up his wind energy project, proud but lonely. His parents were too busy with work to attend. "Can I see your project?" he asked, feeling an unexpected connection with that part of his daughter. Lily looked at Charlotte, who nodded with a small smile. "It's all right, darling. Show him." The drive to Charlotte's apartment in Queens was filled with Lily's enthusiastic explanation of her project. Max listened, fascinated not only by his daughter's obvious intelligence, but by the pure passion in her voice, something he had lost long ago amid financial reports and board meetings. The apartment was modest but cozy, with walls covered in Lily's drawings and family photographs. Max stopped in front of one in particular, Charlotte holding a newborn Lily. "That was the day I was born," Lily commented, stopping next to him. "Mom says I cried so much that the nurses thought I had opera singer's lungs." Max felt his throat tighten. He should have been there. "Do you want to see my project?" Lily asked, already pulling him by the sleeve of his suit towards his room. The room was a fascinating mix of science and fantasy. Posters of the solar system shared space with unicorns, and a bookcase equally organized books on basic physics and fairy tales. On a carefully arranged table was the project, an impressively detailed mini solar plant. "Look," Lily switched on a small light bulb, demonstrating how the solar panels worked. "Aunt Regina helped me with the electrics, but I did all the design myself. It's extraordinary," Max murmured, genuinely impressed. "You've thought of every angle of the panels for maximum efficiency. Just like the Rochester Enterprises project in Arizona," Lily exclaimed. "I read about it in the paper." Max froze. "Do you follow the company's projects?" Lily ran over to her bed, pulling a decorated box out from under it. Inside were dozens of newspaper clippings, all about him or his company. "Mom helps me clip when news of you appears," she explained, leafing through the clippings with reverent care. "She always said that one day you'd be proud of me." Max felt his legs weaken and sat down on the edge of Lily's bed. Each clipping was a stab in the heart, moments of his professional success that his daughter collected like treasures, while he didn't even know she existed. "Lily," he began, his voice breaking, "I'm already proud of you." She stopped leafing through the clippings, looking at him with those eyes so like her own. "Really? Absolutely true," he replied, surprised at the sincerity in his own voice. Lily smiled, but then her face turned serious. "Mom's going to die, isn't she?" The question hit Max like a punch in the gut. How to answer that? How to protect his daughter from a truth that he himself could barely process? Lily, the doctors think so, she continued, her voice small but firm. I heard them talking to Aunt Regina. 3 months. Max pulled his daughter close, feeling her tremble slightly in his arms. It was the first time he had held her. He realized with a squeeze in his heart. I'm scared, she whispered against his suit. Me too, he admitted, surprised at his own honesty. But you're not alone, Lily. Not anymore. Promise? I promise. That night, after putting Lily to bed, a surreal experience that involved reading a chapter from a book about young scientists, Max sat in the living room of the apartment, looking at the photographs on the wall. His phone showed 47 missed calls and 89 unread messages. The merger was probably falling apart. His corporate empire could be at risk. But for the first time in his adult life, Maxwell Rochester discovered that there were more important things that no empire could buy. Picking up the phone, he typed a message to his assistant. Cancel all appointments for the next 3 months. Urgent family matters. Then, glancing once more at the photo of Charlotte with newborn Lily, he added, and schedule a meeting with my lawyers for tomorrow. I need to update my will. The next morning dawned with a different New York for Max. He woke up on the sofa in Charlotte's apartment, his $3,000 suit crumpled, and the sound of Lily humming in the kitchen. Do you like pancakes? She asked when she saw him wake up, balancing precariously on a stool to reach the cupboard. Mom always makes them with chocolate chips, but I only have regular ones today. Max stood up quickly, helping her down from the stool. Let me help you. We don't want any accidents before your presentation. Do you know how to make pancakes? Lily asked skeptically. The truth was, no. Her mornings usually consisted of premium coffee and financial reports, but how could she admit that to her daughter? We can learn together, he suggested, picking up his phone for a quick Google search. 20 minutes later, the kitchen was a mess of flour and poorly mixed batter, but the sound of Lily's laughter as they tried to flip the misshapen pancakes made it all worthwhile. That one looks like Saturn, she exclaimed, pointing to a particularly crooked one. And this one here, Max replied, showing a completely burnt one. Looks like the stock market after a crisis. Lily laughed, a pure sound that made something inside him melt. You're funny, Dad. Different from the magazines. Flashback. 6 months ago. Mr. Rochester, his assistant, entered his office. Forbes wants to do another story on you. They're asking if you'd like to be photographed on your yacht or in the office. In the office, he replied without hesitation. Keep it professional. Nothing personal. Time to get ready for school, he said, consulting his Patek Philippe. We don't want to be late for your presentation. The drive to school was a lesson in his daughter's life. Lily talked about her friends, her teachers, her grades, all excellent, he noted with pride, and, above all, how Charlotte always made this journey with her, pointing out different types of clouds in the sky. The school was modest, very different from the private institution he had attended. Even so, there was a liveliness and warmth to the atmosphere that surprised him. Mr. Rochester, Lily's teacher, Miss Martinez, recognized him immediately. I didn't know you. I mean, Lily never mentioned you were coming. It's a surprise, Lily answered for him, beaming. He's going to see my project. The presentation was flawless. Lily explained every detail of her mini solar plant with precision and passion, answering questions with a confidence that reminded him of his best corporate presentations. Impressive, commented one of the judges. Where did you get the inspiration? My father, Lily replied without hesitation, looking at Max with pride. He built the biggest solar plant in Arizona. The weight of those words, of undeserved pride, almost knocked him over. His daughter had built an entire identity based on newspaper clippings and success stories, while he didn't even know she existed. After the presentation, which won first place, Max received an urgent call from his company. Mr. Rochester, his CFO sounded desperate. The shareholders are panicking. The merger is falling apart. We need you here immediately. Max looked at Lily, who was carefully guarding her project, still smiling at her victory. How much will we lose? He asked, his voice calm. About 400 million, sir. It's a catastrophe. Schedule a video conference for this afternoon. I'll do it remotely. But sir? Thomas, Max interrupted. 10 years ago, I sacrificed something much more valuable than 400 million. I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Hanging up the phone, he approached Lily. "How about we visit your mother? I'm sure she'll want to know about your first place." At the hospital, Charlotte was having a difficult day. The pain was more intense, and the doctors had increased the morphine. Still, her eyes lit up when she saw Lily walk in with her certificate. "First place," Lily announced, rushing over to hug her mother carefully. "Of course I did." Charlotte smiled weakly. "You are a Rochester, after all." "Actually," Max interjected gently, "she's much better than that. She's herself." Charlotte looked at him in surprise, and he saw something in her eyes, a glint of recognition, perhaps, of the man she once knew. Later, while Lily was showing her project to the nurses in the corridor, Charlotte touched Max's hand. "You look different," she observed. "Pancakes," he replied with a small smile. "Apparently, making bad pancakes with your daughter changes a person." Charlotte laughed, then grimaced in pain. "Max, there's something we need to discuss, about Lily's future." "I know," he replied, squeezing her hand lightly. "I'm already taking care of that. But Charlotte, don't give up yet. Lily needs you." "I need you to forgive me?" she asked softly. "No," he shook his head. "To teach me to be the father she deserves." At that moment, Lily returned to the bedroom, her eyes shining with the excitement of the day. And for the first time in his adult life, Maxwell Rochester understood that true success couldn't be measured in dollars or shares. It was measured in smiles, burnt pancakes, and small solar power plants made with love. The following week brought a new routine for Max, so different from his previous life that he sometimes wondered if he wasn't living in a parallel reality. His mornings, once dedicated to financial reports and premium coffee, now began with less and less disastrous attempts to make breakfast for Lily. On that particular morning, while trying to decipher how to operate the modest coffee maker in Charlotte's apartment, her cell phone rang. It was Bernard Phillips, her largest shareholder. "Rochester," the deep voice sounded menacing. "The board has called an emergency meeting. Your absence is costing the company millions. Either you show up in person today or we'll vote you out of office." Max watched Lily through the kitchen door, packing her school bag with the same methodical precision he used to use in his corporate presentations. "What time is the meeting, Bernard?" 2 in the afternoon, don't be late." Max hung up the phone and checked his watch. The time conflicted directly with Charlotte's chemotherapy session, where he had promised to be present. Flashback. 3 days ago. "Max," Charlotte called weakly after a particularly strong attack of pain. "Promise you'll be here on Thursday. It's the last attempt with a new protocol." "I'll be here," he promised, holding her thin hand. "I'm not going anywhere." "Daddy?" Lily's voice brought him back to the present. "You're worried. Your forehead makes those funny wrinkles when you're worried." Max smiled, impressed by how observant his daughter was. "Just thinking about some work stuff, dear." "Is it because of that merger you abandoned?" she asked, surprising him. "I saw it in the paper. They said you're throwing away your life's work." The fact that his 8-year-old daughter reads financial news about him would be comical if it weren't so painfully revealing. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "you have to choose what's really important." "Like being with Mom this afternoon?" Lily asked, his eyes, piercing and too wise for her age. Max felt his heart squeeze. "How did you—" "I heard you promise," she shrugged, "and Mom was happier after that." Just then, her phone vibrated with a message from her assistant. "Helicopter confirmed for 13:30. Driver will arrive in 30 minutes to take you to the helipad." Max looked at the message, then at his daughter, and made a decision that would have been unthinkable a few weeks ago. "Diana," he dictated his reply, "cancel the helicopter. Send all the relevant documents to my email. I'll attend the hospital remotely." The responses were immediate and furious. Bernard threatened lawsuits. Other shareholders promised to withdraw their investments. But for the first time in his career, Maxwell Rochester didn't care about the threats. At the hospital, he set up his laptop in a corner of Charlotte's room. Lily was sitting next to her mother, holding her hand as the chemotherapy ran through the IV. "Gentlemen," Max began the video conference, his professional voice contrasting with the hospital atmosphere, "I understand your concerns." "Concerns?" Bernard interrupted. "You abandoned a $400 million merger without explanation. Your irresponsibility is destroying everything we've built." Max watched Charlotte, who had fallen asleep under the effect of the drugs, her hand still entwined with Lily's. Something inside him changed fundamentally at that moment. Something inside him changed fundamentally at that moment. "No, Bernard," he replied calmly. "For the first time in my life, I'm being truly responsible." "What are you talking about? Where are you?" Max turned his laptop around, showing the hospital room. "I'm with my daughter and her mother, who is battling terminal cancer. If this is unacceptable to the board, I accept my dismissal immediately." The silence that followed was deafening. "Do you have a daughter?" Bernard asked, his voice losing its aggressiveness. "Yes," Max replied, looking at Lily, who had fallen asleep next to Charlotte. "And over the last 10 years, while we've been building our empire, I've missed every precious moment of her life. I won't miss another one." The meeting continued for another hour, but with a completely different tone. In the end, the merger was reorganized, not abandoned, and Max kept his position, albeit with a new arrangement that would allow him to work remotely for the next few months. When he switched off his computer, he noticed that Charlotte was awake, watching him. "You chose to stay," she whispered. "Yes," he replied simply. "The empire you've built. It's not worth the price I paid for it," he added, moving his chair closer to the bed. "Charlotte, I'm sorry for everything." She smiled weakly, then her face contorted in pain. Max immediately pressed the button for the nurse. "You know what's ironic?" she asked between labored breaths. "All this time I thought you'd left us to build something great, but you already had something great here." Max looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully, and felt tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed for years. "Yes," he agreed. "I did, and I promise I won't waste this second chance." The nurse came in to adjust his medication, and Max realized that, for the first time in his adult life, he wasn't thinking about the next deal, the next acquisition, the next million. He was thinking only about the next moment with his family and how to make each one count. The deterioration in Charlotte's health accelerated dramatically over the following weeks. What the doctors had predicted as months turned into a race against time. One particularly difficult morning, Max found Lily sitting in the hospital corridor, hugging her science project. "She can't speak properly anymore," Lily said when he sat down next to her. "And sometimes she looks at me as if she doesn't recognize me." Max felt his heart break. How could he explain to an 8-year-old the cruelty of morphine, the way it robbed his mother not only of her pain, but also of her lucidity? "Can I tell you a secret?" he asked, pulling Lily close. "When I was little, a little older than you, my mother also got very ill. Flashback, 30 years ago. She's different today, Dad," young Max whispered, watching his mother through the bedroom door. "It's the medication, son," his father replied mechanically, already putting on his jacket to go to work. "Take care of her while I'm gone." Max never forgave his father for prioritizing work in those last days, a lesson that, ironically, took him decades to really learn. "What happened to her?" Lily asked, her eyes fixed on the project in her lap. "She left," Max replied softly. "But before that, on the days when she was most confused, I discovered something important. Even when she couldn't say my name, her heart still recognized me." "How did you know?" "Because every time I held her hand, she squeezed back. It was our secret code." Lily absorbed this information in silence, then stood up resolutely. "Come with me, Daddy." In the bedroom, Charlotte was sleeping restlessly. Lily approached the bed and gently took her mother's hand. "Mom," she called softly, "if you're still there, squeeze my hand." For an agonizing moment, nothing happened. Then, almost imperceptibly, Charlotte's fingers closed around Lily's. Max watched his daughter smile through her tears and felt a sharp pain in his chest as he realized how many moments like this he had missed. Mr. Rochester, Dr. Harrison, the lead oncologist, appeared in the doorway. "Can we talk in private?" In the hallway, the doctor got straight to the point. "The latest tests aren't promising. The cancer has spread to the brain. We're talking days, not weeks." Max felt his legs go weak. "Is she suffering?" "Morphine helps with the physical pain," the doctor replied diplomatically. "But there are decisions that need to be made about end-of-life procedures, artificial support." "No," a firm voice interrupted. Regina was standing a few paces back, her eyes red but determined. "Charlotte left specific instructions, no extraordinary measures." "Did you talk about it?" Max asked, feeling once again like an intruder in the life he had abandoned. "Of course we did," Regina replied, not unkindly. "While you were building skyscrapers, we were building a life, with all the difficult decisions that entails." The silence that followed was interrupted by a sound coming from Charlotte's room. Lily was reading aloud, and the prince realized that all the gold in the kingdom was not worth the love he had left behind. Her daughter's clear voice floated down the corridor. Max and Regina approached the door. Lily was sitting on the edge of the bed, a worn book in her hands, while Charlotte, even sedated, seemed calmer. That was her favorite book, Regina commented softly. Charlotte read to Lily every night, even after an exhausting day at work. She was always stronger than me, Max admitted. No, Regina corrected. She just knew what really mattered. That night, after Lily had finally fallen asleep on the sofa in the bedroom, Max sat next to Charlotte. Charlotte left on a rainy Thursday, just like the day Max had met her 15 years earlier. The moment arrived not with the drama he had expected, but with devastating stillness. Lily was asleep on the sofa in the bedroom, and Regina had gone out to get coffee. Max, Charlotte called, her voice only a whisper. He approached immediately, taking her hand. His eyes, previously clouded by morphine, were surprisingly lucid. I need you to listen, she said with difficulty. Without interrupting, he nodded, feeling the weight of each word. For years, she continued, I've carried so much anger, so much resentment, but now I understand that sometimes we need to lose everything to find what really matters. She paused, breathing hard. You're finding your way back, Max. I see it in the way you look at her, the way you listen to her. Don't lose that. Don't lose her. Charlotte, Shh, she interrupted him softly. One last thing. I forgive you. The word struck Max like a thunderbolt. Tears that he had been holding back for weeks finally spilled over. And now, she whispered, I need you to forgive yourself too. Her eyes closed and her breathing became shallower. Max pressed the emergency button, but in his heart he knew it was the end. Lily, he called softly, waking his daughter. Come, say goodbye to Mom. Lily approached sleepily, but her eyes widened at the sight of Charlotte's state. Mommy, she called, her voice small and frightened. Charlotte opened her eyes one last time, focusing on her daughter. With a visible effort, she managed to squeeze Lily's hand. My greatest love, she whispered. Be happy. And then, with the same serenity with which she had lived, Charlotte left. The heart monitor emitted its continuous tone just as the first rays of sunlight broke through the rain. Mom, Lily called again, her voice breaking. Mommy, wake up. Max pulled his daughter to him, feeling her tremble. No, Lily began to sob. No, no, no. You promised you'd be all right. You promised. The doctors and nurses entered the room, but Max barely registered their presence. His whole world had been reduced to the little girl in his arms, whose heart was breaking in a way he knew only too well. Regina arrived moments later, dropping the coffee she was carrying. Her silent scream echoed louder than any sound. The next few hours passed in a blur of procedures and paperwork. Max moved automatically, signing documents and making arrangements, while Regina looked after Lily. It was only at night, after his daughter had finally fallen asleep exhausted in her old bed, that reality really hit him. Sitting in the kitchen of Charlotte's apartment, Max looked at the photographs on the wall. Each one told a story that he wasn't part of. Birthdays, school graduations, everyday moments of joy that he had chosen to miss. She saved these for you, Regina said, entering the kitchen and handing him an envelope. She asked me to deliver it later. With trembling hands, Max opened the envelope. Inside was a letter and a photograph he had never seen before. Pregnant Charlotte, radiant, caressing her belly while smiling at the camera. Dear Max, if you're reading this, it means I've left. It also means that you chose to stay, something I never doubted you would do when the moment really mattered. Our story didn't have the happy ending we dreamed of, but through Lily, we have the chance to write a new chapter. She's the best of both of us, Max. She has your brilliance and determination, but also a capacity for love that sometimes scares me. I know you're scared. I know you feel inadequate and guilty. But Max, being a father isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about getting up every time you fall. And believe me, you're going to fall a lot. Keep this photo. It's from the day I found out I was pregnant. I was so scared, but also so happy. I wanted you to know that, even in the most difficult times, I've never regretted having our daughter. Take care of her, Max. Not as a project or an obligation, but as the precious gift that she is. And remember, Sometimes the greatest acts of love come disguised as small moments, burnt pancakes, bedtime stories, hugs for no reason. And please teach her that it's okay to cry, that it's okay to feel angry, that it's okay not to be perfect. Bricow, Charlotte. Max didn't realize he was sobbing until he felt Regina's hand on his shoulder. She never stopped believing in you, Regina said softly, even when we all doubted. How am I going to do this? He asked, his voice broken. How am I going to raise her alone? First, Regina replied, taking a seat next to him, you're not alone. And secondly, you do as we all do, one day at a time. A cry from the bedroom interrupted the conversation. Max got up immediately, but hesitated at the door. Go, Regina encouraged. Your daughter needs you. In the bedroom, Lily was sitting on the bed, hugging Charlotte's favorite storybook. Daddy, she sobbed. I want my mommy. Max sat down next to her, pulling her into his arms. Me too, darling, he admitted, allowing himself to cry with her. Me too. And there, in the room Charlotte had lovingly decorated, father and daughter began their long healing process. Together. Remember our first fight? He whispered, holding her hand. You said I was so busy building a future that I was missing out on the present. You were right, as always. To his surprise, Charlotte opened her eyes slightly. Max, she murmured, her voice almost inaudible. I'm here, he replied, leaning closer. Look after Herschin, Charlotte managed to say, each word a visible effort. Not like your father, took care of you. The impact of those words, the fact that even now, even after everything, Charlotte still worried about her old wounds, was overwhelming. I promise, he replied, his voice breaking. I'll be better. For her. For you. Charlotte managed to manage a small smile before going back to sleep. Max remained there, holding her hand, watching the face of the woman he had once loved, and whom, he now realized, he had never really stopped loving. On the sofa, Lily stirred in her sleep, still clutching her storybook. Max realized that he was witnessing the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The story that Charlotte had so lovingly begun would now be continued by him. And for the first time in his life, Maxwell Rochester was determined not to waste a single page. Charlotte's funeral took place 2 days later, in an intimate ceremony that perfectly reflected her nature. The New York sky, normally chaotic, was strangely serene. Max watched Lily, impeccable in her black dress, tightly holding a sunflower, her mother's favorite flower. During the ceremony, her daughter maintained a composure that broke his heart. She was trying to be too strong, just as he had done so many years ago at his own mother's funeral. Would anyone like to say a few words? The celebrant asked. To everyone's surprise, Lily stood up. With firm steps, she walked to the pulpit, having to stand on tiptoe to reach the microphone. Mom always said that stories are magic, she began, her voice small but clear, that they can take us to special places when we're sad. So, I wrote a story for her. Lily pulled a folded piece of paper from the pocket of her dress. Once upon a time there was a warrior princess called Charlotte. She didn't fight with swords, but with love. Her superpower was to make people smile even when she was tired. She worked hard, but always had time to read stories and make chocolate chip pancakes. The warrior princess fell ill, but kept fighting, not for herself, but for her little princess. And before she left for the stars, she did something magical. She brought back a king who had been lost for a long time. Now the little princess is sad, but she knows that her warrior is in the stars, making the sky more beautiful. And even though the king is still learning to be a king, she knows she's not alone. The end, or rather the beginning. There wasn't a dry eye in the church when Lily finished. Max felt Regina squeeze his hand as silent tears streamed down her face. After the ceremony, as the people dispersed, Max found Lily sitting alone on the church steps. That was a beautiful story, he said, taking a seat next to her. Mom always said that the best stories are the true ones, she replied, playing with the petal of the sunflower. Daddy, are you really going to stay, or are you going to get lost again? The question hit him full force. Max took his daughter's small hand between his. Lily, look at me, he asked softly. I'm here, and I promise, with all my heart, that I'm not going anywhere. But what about your work, your important meetings? Nothing is more important than you, he replied with a conviction that surprised even himself. Actually, I have a surprise to show you. Later that day, Max took Lily to a building on the Upper West Side. It was a spacious apartment overlooking Central Park. "What do you think?" he asked, watching his daughter explore the empty space. "We could decorate together. Make this our home." Lily stopped in front of a white wall. "Can we paint constellations here? Mom and I always wanted to do that, but the landlord of the old apartment wouldn't let us." "We can do whatever you want," Max replied. "This is our fresh start. Can I have a corner for my science projects?" "Of course." Actually, he led her to a specific room. "I thought this could be your private lab." Lily's eyes widened at the sight of the large space with its large windows. "My own lab. On one condition," Max added seriously. "You have to teach me everything you know about renewable energy. I think Rochester Enterprises needs a special consultant in this area." For the first time since Charlotte's death, Lily smiled, a genuine smile that lit up her eyes. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "I think Mom would like it here, especially the view of the park." "Yes," Max agreed, remembering how Charlotte had always loved Central Park. She'd love it. That night, after having pizza on the floor of the empty apartment, something the former Maxwell Rochester would never have considered appropriate, Lily asked to sleep in the room that would be hers. "But we don't have any furniture yet," Max observed. "No problem," she replied, already spreading out some blankets they had brought. "We can camp. Mom and I used to do that sometimes when it was stormy." So there they were, the mighty Maxwell Rochester and his daughter, lying on blankets on the floor of an empty apartment, watching the city lights through the large windows. "Daddy?" Lily called sleepily. "Do you think Mommy can see us from up there?" Max looked up at the Manhattan night sky, thinking about all the choices that had brought him here. "I'm sure she can, honey," he replied. "And I think she's smiling." "Why?" "Because we're finally writing the story the right way." Lily snuggled closer to him, and soon her breathing became regular with sleep. Max stayed awake, watching his daughter sleep and making plans, not for mergers or acquisitions, but for a future that really mattered, a future that Charlotte had always known he would be able to build, even when he himself doubted it. The first month after Charlotte's death was a delicate dance of adaptation. Max found that managing a multi-billion-dollar company was infinitely easier than dealing with the grief of an 8-year-old child, especially when he was dealing with his own grief. One particularly challenging morning, he found Lily sitting in the middle of her new, still partially decorated bedroom, crying silently while holding a hairbrush. "Honey, what's wrong?" he asked, kneeling down beside her. "I can't braid it," she sobbed. "Mom always braided my hair for school. Aunt Regina tried to teach me, but it doesn't look the same." Max looked at the brush in his hands, then at his daughter's disheveled hair. Another parent might have called a babysitter or simply suggested a simple ponytail, but something in Charlotte's voice echoed in his memory. Sometimes the greatest acts of love come disguised as small moments. "YouTube," he declared, picking up his phone. "What? If I can learn how to run a global company through books and mentors, I can learn how to braid hair through YouTube," he explained, already looking for tutorials. For the next hour, father and daughter sat on the bedroom floor, watching hairstyle videos. Max's first attempts were disastrous. They looked more like knots than braids, but Lily laughed for the first time in days, especially when he accidentally made a crooked braid that made her hair look like a roller coaster. "Mom would be laughing so hard right now," she commented, as he tried for the 10th time. "Yes, she would," he agreed, concentrating on his task. "Your mother always found my attempts to be a perfectionist funny." Flashback, 12 years ago. "Max, it's just dinner," Charlotte laughed, watching him rearrange the cutlery for the 3rd time. "My family won't judge you for the positioning of your forks." "Presentation is everything," he replied seriously. "Details make the difference." "No," she corrected gently, purposely messing up the cutlery. "Love makes the difference. The rest is just decoration." "I did it!" Max exclaimed triumphantly, showing Lily his work in the mirror. The braid wasn't perfect. It was far from it, in fact, but it was recognizable. "It's crooked," Lily observed, but smiled. "But I like it. It's special. Like us," he added, kissing the top of her head. "Imperfect, but trying." That morning marked a subtle change in their dynamic. Max began to realize that he didn't need to be perfect. He just needed to be there, trying. The days turned into a unique routine, waking up early to make breakfast, still occasionally burning the pancakes, braids that were less and less crooked, corporate meetings interspersed with homework help. Her home office was given a special corner for Lily, with a small study table next to her imposing desk. It wasn't unusual to see the CEO of Rochester Enterprises conducting video conferences while his daughter worked quietly on her science projects next door. One afternoon, during an important virtual meeting with international investors, Lily raised her hand as she did at school. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Max interrupted the discussion. "Yes, dear. I think they're forgetting the environmental impact," she commented shyly. "The project in Asia will affect an important mangrove area." The silence that followed was broken by Bernard Phillips, who had become surprisingly understanding since the funeral. "The girl's right," he said, adjusting his glasses. "We haven't adequately considered the environmental factor. Ms. Rochester, do you have any suggestions?" Lily's eyes lit up as she explained her idea of integrating solar energy into the project, reducing the impact on the mangroves. Max watched with pride as the executives took notes, treating his 8-year-old daughter's suggestions with professional seriousness. After the meeting, as they shared a snack in the kitchen, Lily looked pensive. "Daddy? Do you think one day I'll be able to help make the world a better place, like Mommy used to?" Max looked at his daughter, this little person who could see beyond numbers and profits, just as Charlotte had always done. "Honey, you're already doing that," he replied. "Today you saved an entire mangrove swamp on the other side of the world. But it's different," she insisted. "Mom helped people. She hugged those who were sad and made everyone feel special." "You know," Max said, pulling her close, "there are many ways to make the world better. Your mother did it with love and compassion. You can do it with your intelligence and your heart. And together we can try to do it both ways." That evening, while helping Lily with her latest project, a sustainable irrigation system for the small garden they were planning on their balcony, Max realized that he was changing too. The man who once measured success in dollars now measured it in smiles, in crooked braids, in small daily victories. Charlotte was right. As always, sometimes the greatest acts of love come disguised as small moments. And little by little, braid by braid, project by project, father and daughter were building something far more valuable than any corporate empire. They were building a family. If you had to choose between maintaining your professional empire or rebuilding a lost family relationship, which would you choose and why? How has Max and Lily's story made you reflect on your own priorities in life? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.